Stay frosty and head over to EasyMut.com for the cheapest MUT coins on the market. And when I say cheapest, I mean it. We're talking 1 million coins for around 40 bucks. Use code DIRECTOR for 5% off. Yo, what up, brothers? What's up? It's the Director. Chargers fans, it's time to talk a little bit about the future. I know there's a lot of talk going around. We got to fire Anthony Lynn and all that kind of stuff. I do agree with that. It is time for a change at coaching for the Chargers, but I kind of wanted to look at something a little different for today's video, kind of get our minds off all the craziness right now. We're going to be talking about free agents and free agent acquisitions for the Chargers next year. As you guys know, the cap is going to be changing a little bit next season due to COVID. There's a whole bunch of stuff getting cut back. So the Chargers are actually sitting very pretty at $40 million right now, estimated in comparison to other teams in the NFL. Like, it's crazy. We live in a time where $40 million is a lot of money. The irony with that statement, right? But regardless, the Chargers have a lot of money to work with, and there's a lot of things that the Chargers need to address going into 2021. Now, I don't know how everything's going to work. I don't know how many cheap contracts we're going to see because of the new cap hit, but at the same time, it's something we want to keep our eye on, because if we can start getting guys at a very good value, who knows what's going to happen with the cap over the next couple of years. Now, as you guys saw, the first guy we're going to go over here is John Ross. I feel like there's a lot of names out there in the 2021 free agent pool that the Chargers could definitely take advantage of that helps this team out at a tremendous value, and those are the kind of names that I'm going to be looking for in this video. Before we really start breaking things down, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this video. Lights, camera, action. Chargers fans are looking to the future after a very bleak 2020 season under Anthony Lynn. Hopefully, again, guys, that changes here very soon. But outside of that, the Chargers still have more business to take care of. Now, I've compiled a very big list of some of the free agents that I am looking at very, very early, guys. This is a very early take on the free agency pool, but it kind of starts getting your beak wet. It kind of starts getting your mind working as to who the Chargers can start looking at and the positions we do need to address. So the first one I do have listed here is John Ross. Actually, let me move this over a little bit for you guys. There we go, John Ross. Now, wide receiver is definitely a position the Chargers need. Keep in mind as we're going through all of this that the Chargers could address a lot of these needs in the draft if we do draft intelligently. We do have a pretty high pick this year, so hopefully we can get a difference maker. So if we do pick up a guy like Waddle or even Jamar Chase, then maybe we don't need John Ross as desperately. But I do think John Ross is one of those guys that I've been really having my eye on this year because he just comes at such a tremendous value. Here on spotrec.com, you'll see that his calculated market value right now is at $4.2 million a year. That is a very, very good value for the kind of wide receiver you're getting in John Ross. Now, yes, he does come with some question marks. Injury has been kind of a concern, but really when you're looking at a guy like John Ross, there's a few things that he brings to the table when it comes to the Chargers. I have a whole bunch of bullet points for every one of these players as well, guys, so we'll go over everybody in detail. John Ross does offer something that we need. We need to stretch the field. We need more speed out there. He pairs very, very well with Justin Herbert's big arm. And yes, we do have Jalen Guyton, but I still see John Ross as a big upgrade. Of course, Guyton is fast. John Ross is even faster. He gives Allen free reign of the slot, Keenan Allen. We can start featuring Mike Williams more. If we're going to be, spending cap and stuff like that on Mike Williams, I want to put him to work. And then on top of that, the cheap contract of John Ross, he would definitely offer a lot of value for the very low cap hit that he would be taking from the Chargers. So here it says the base calculated value is 2 years, $9 million, average of 4.7 a year. I think it's going to be around $8.4 million a year. He does have injury concern. The Bengals elected not to trade him last offseason. There is some question marks there, but really it's such a low risk move by the Chargers. I think it would greatly benefit this team. Next up, let's take a look at another speedy wide receiver. We're going to go by position here. We're going to take a look at Brashad Perriman. Now, Brashad Perriman had a pretty good year with the New York Jets. I think he shows a lot of promise there. He showed a lot of promise in Tampa Bay. I just don't know if he had quite the quarterback to get him the ball the way that he needs to make plays. I think Justin Herbert would definitely be a huge upgrade for him at quarterback. He does possess very good speed, and he'd come on a very cheap one-year contract. Right now, he's on contract with the Jets. 1 year, $6.5 million. I would estimate it being a little bit cheaper than that going into next year. He will be a little bit older, but still he does offer a lot of what John Ross offered. Definitely not as fast, but still he would offer the Chargers a speedy option down there, which I really think that we need. We got some good wide receivers this year. Justin Herbert's been making guys look like Jalen Guyton and Johnson look very good. Imagine a guy that's got a little bit more experience under his belt, maybe a little bit more talent as well. Next up, let's move into the tight ends. Now, it's one of the tight ends I think the Chargers definitely need to sign is a guy that's already on our roster, and his name is Hunter Henry. Of course, I think the Chargers need to maintain Hunter Henry on this team. When it comes to top talent at tight end in the league, it's very, very hard to maintain it. It's very hard to keep it on your team. It's very hard to come by it in the draft. I think you can't let a guy like Hunter Henry walk away. You really do need to re-sign him. In my opinion, he's still a top 10 tight end in the league. Maybe his underperformance this year does keep his market value, at bay, but he's very familiar with the Chargers. It offers some stability for Justin Herbert, and I think it's just the right move for the Chargers to re-sign him. He's got a base calculated value of 4 years, $31 million, and an average of $7.7 million a year. You'll see that's well below the top guy here in Austin Hooper at $42 million over 4 years. So I think it's still a good value. I think Hunter Henry or Justin Herbert definitely wants that kind of stability, and it does seem like he's kind of shaking that injury bug this year. So I say definitely keep Hunter Henry on the squad. Now, it doesn't mean we can't still go sign somebody else. I think the Chargers would be wise to get another, receiving threat at tight end. The development of Donald Parham, who knows how that's going to go. Ricky Seals-Jones here is a very cheap option at tight end as well. Signed a 1 year, under $1 million contract, I think with the Chiefs, and he would definitely offer another a great weapon for Justin Herbert. I think he'd be a great receiving tight end. He'll pair very well with Hunter Henry as well. Very, very low cap hit, very low risk. So I like that a lot. Next up, let's move into the position I think the Chargers should be most aggressive in this year, and it really does depend on our draft position this season. If we are in position to get Penei Sewell, then I think all of this changes. But if we're not, the Chargers need to get aggressive here. The Chargers need to make a big splash signing, and I think we're going to start with this man right here, Trent Williams. Now, Trent Williams did sign a 1 year contract with the 49ers. I think in that contract it says that they cannot franchise tag him, and obviously Trent Williams still has a lot left in the tank. Very, very expensive option, but I think when it comes to Justin Herbert protecting the future of this team, really money cannot be any obstacle for the Chargers in this instance. So I wrote down here expensive, but in retrospect, we need someone who can hold down the fort while we develop young talent, while at the same time keeping Justin Herbert protected. I think the line has been way too weak for too long. The Chargers, they don't seem to want to draft any talent. They've been really, really terrible at drafting offensive linemen in the past decade or so. So if they can't do that, go out there and get a guy who is proven. Sure, he's going to be a lot of money, but at the same time, it frees up early picks as well. So we don't have to commit to another guy like Leatherwood or somebody whose name is not Penei Sewell. Okay. Next up, we've got not Cam Robinson, Kelvin Beachum. Now, Kelvin Beachum, I think, was kind of a steal for the Cardinals this last year. I know he's 31 years old, but I really like this guy, man. Some of the pros of bringing him onto the Chargers, I think it's one, we've got to get Sam Tevi off of this team. I think he's become kind of a liability. Sure, he's been a little bit better, but at left tackle, you really want to protect your franchise quarterback, and Kelvin Beachum would offer us the opportunity to get Tevi away from that position. Beachum is still an above average left tackle in my opinion too. Sure, he's not like the best in the league, but he would still be a huge upgrade over Sam Tevi. You got to think about it that way. He'd be cheap, short term, and he'd buy us a lot of time to draft a permanent solution maybe in 2022. And again, he signed a 1 year, $1.1 million contract with the Cardinals. I think we could get him for about the same, maybe in a longer term. I'd like to see him on the team a couple years if we do go after him. Next up, we do have Alex Mack. We do need a center. I think at this point, Mike Pouncey's probably not going to be coming back. He's been having injury problems. Alex Mack at 35 years old is still out there proving that he's the real deal, man. So he kind of reminds me of the Whitworth out of the Los Angeles Rams team. He just kind of keeps on going. So if they decide to move away from him, the Atlanta Falcons, I would really like to see the Chargers make a push for him. I'm not quite sure what his market value would be. I think right now, $8 million, between $8 and $10 million for 1 year is kind of what I'm thinking is realistically possible. He's older but still proven. It'd be a very short-term contract, and I think he's still one of the top centers in the league. So there's a chance we could extend him even until his age of like 36 or 37. I think it's completely possible. And lastly, Corey Linsley, center for the Green Bay Packers right now. He's another guy where if we don't really have anybody there, if we really need an upgrade at the center position, because Dan Feeney's doing pretty well, but maybe they do want to move him around. Maybe we don't extend him. I don't know what the situation is there. Corey Linsley would definitely offer some chemistry with Brian Bulaga, who's already on this team. They played together in Green Bay. He'd have a shorter contract, and he'd be a solid option. Not top tier, but he definitely would be an upgrade. I can see his contract going for around $16 million for 2 years, and honestly, that's not too bad when considering this is like the center stone of your offensive line. Now, moving into defensive end. Ooh, this is where things get juicy, man. A lot of people are saying the Chargers should maybe go after a defensive end, a pass rusher in the draft. I don't know, man. There's so much really good talent at the top of the draft. I mean, definitely there's some really good guys there that we could draft and plug and play next to Joey Bosa. But I think if we're going to make a splash signing, this is one of my favorite of the video. Let's take a look at this guy here, Jadeveon Clowney. Now, Jadeveon Clowney signed a 1-year deal with the Tennessee Titans. You know, hasn't played very much out there as far as I can see with the injury. He's on injury reserve right now with the knee. There is some injury concern with him, but at the same time, Jadeveon Clowney, a splash signing. He would cost roughly the same as Melvin Ingram, who right now is in decline. So if we elect to not re-sign Melvin Ingram, I think Clowney would be a very, very good option to bring in his stead, because I think Clowney right now, he's age 27. He's kind of in the prime of his years. He could ride his best years with the Chargers. And honestly, this could probably result in the best line in football paired with Joey Bosa. Now, his contract here, he's estimated value at 3 years, $52 million. Again, an average salary of about $17 million, which is about what we paid Melvin Ingram this season. Now, some will also say that, you know, Jadeveon Clowney isn't a scheme fit for the Chargers. I also think that at one point, Melvin Ingram wasn't a scheme fit for the Chargers. He was an outside linebacker and converted to defensive end, and honestly, that's where we, you know, found his untapped potential. I just don't know, man. I have a feeling that Jadeveon Clowney moving to a 4-3 end would bring up some untapped potential in him too. And honestly, having Jadeveon Clowney and Joey Bosa on the same line, it's going to be very hard to stop either one of them. And having both of them for an extended period of time with the Chargers, those elite players on that line, I think this would be one of the best splash moves that the Chargers could make this offseason. Outside of that, you got guys like Yannick Ngakoue, who's definitely still pretty good. He'd still be kind of pricey. You know, he signed a 1-year, $12 million contract. You know, for what he offers, maybe that's a little bit overpriced. I could see him signing like a 2-year, $31 million contract. I think that's, I don't know why I had that written down. I think that's his market value as of right now. Still kind of expensive, but we do need to free up Bosa. Bosa gets double teamed all the time. It's time that we give him some help out there. Melvin Ingram really has been in decline, and I think Yannick Ngakoue is a proven talent, and it would be a short commitment contract to a younger player that we could extend later. And if we just don't have it in the stars, if it's just not in the cap space for us to do a big splash move like that, I think Solomon Thomas would be a really good cheap fit for the Chargers. He was a very high draft prospect coming out of his season, and he would be a very cheap option too, maybe with untapped potential. His base calculated value right now, 3 years, $15 million, average salary of $5 million a year. So really, you're just kind of taking a shot with Solomon Thomas, but he could fit very well in with the Chargers, so that's somebody to keep an eye on this offseason. Now, moving to defensive tackle, there's a lot of guys that I really hope to see the Chargers go after, bigger guys that are better against the run, because the Chargers really do have an issue stopping the run, and getting a really big body in there, I think, is very important. I don't know what the status is of Damas Snacks Harrison or anything like that, but that's the kind of player I'm looking to line up right next to Linval Joseph, who's been really good for the Chargers this year, but he does need some help. Individually, he can't cover every single gap by himself. So taking a look at Ndamukong Suh, I think this would be a pretty good option for the Chargers too. We need another big body in the middle. He's great against the run, lined up next to Joseph. I think he's a good kind of stopgap solution to the Chargers' running defense woes. I think he would cost roughly $7 million for a year, maybe $7.5 million. That's pretty close to what he took with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this last year, so I think it would be a good option for the Bolts. Next up, taking a look at linebacker. Now, there's really only one linebacker that I have my eye on for the Chargers, and it's this man right here. This could be considered another splash signing by the Chargers. Levante David. Now, David is a little bit older, age 30, but I really think he does exactly what the Chargers want. The Chargers have been using Kenneth Murray as a coverage linebacker his entire rookie season, rarely blitzing him, rarely using him in the way that he was effective in college. I really think it's time the Chargers, if they want a true coverage linebacker, maybe try and go get one until you can draft somebody in the future. Another guy like Drew Tranquil would definitely help this team. If you got Drew Tranquil out there with Levante David, let's say we let go of Denzel Perryman and move Kenneth Murray into that position, I think you're finally looking at a Chargers team the way they want to operate. 4-3, you need coverage linebackers. Levante David really does offer that. Now, his base calculated value is 2 years, $24 million, $12 million per year. That's really not bad in retrospect to what you're getting with him. You give us time to get another coverage linebacker in his stead in the next couple of drafts, and then the Chargers can start operating this defense the way they've been wanting to the last couple of years. So I really like that. Low key, not too expensive. He's a little bit older, but I do think he does everything right for what the Bolts want to run. Next up, cornerback. Now, I don't think it's any secret that the Chargers have been having trouble with their defensive backs this year. I think it's time that the Chargers maybe go take a look at one of those top-tier free agency guys, just like we did last year with Chris Harris Jr. Some people say it'll never happen. Well, Chris Harris Jr. kind of proved the otherwise. Casey Hayward Jr. has been kind of on a decline, so I think we have to get him some help out there with Patrick Peterson. Now, Patrick Peterson could command around $24 million for 2 years. I think he's still one of the league's best cornerbacks. I don't know if the Cardinals would even let him go, but again, with Casey Hayward in decline, we need somebody to go out there and man his position, maybe take a little bit of pressure off of Casey Hayward, because he hasn't really been performing too well as of late. And we could also give Patrick Peterson, considering he's 30 years old, a smaller contract, very similar to what we gave Chris Harris Jr. 3 years, $36 million, average of $12 million a year. That's really not bad in retrospect to what you're getting with Patrick Peterson. Outside of that, I think we just need more speed out there. If you want a different option, somebody that's a little bit faster, I do like William Jackson. He'd be around $30 million for 3 years, so an average of $10 million a year, so a little bit cheaper than Patrick Peterson, but he does have some youth with him as well, as he will only be 28 years old. $6.3 million annual salary is definitely not bad, so 3 years, $20 million, $6.7 million a year, so actually pretty cheap. Actually, I don't know why I had $30 million written down there. It's actually $20 million over 3 years, so that's very, very good. And I think he's still very talented, and he could definitely help us out with some speed in the DB core. On top of that, I think the Chargers should start thinking about safety. A lot of us were really hoping that Nasir Adderley would be our solution going forward. He's really struggled in that position. He's definitely a playmaker, but he really has had an issue in coverage, and it's really kind of sad to see that he's not developing into the player that we thought he could be, but at the same time, it opens up an opportunity for the Chargers to get a difference maker in there. I really like Anthony Harris. He's going to be another one of those splash signings, very expensive, but definitely worth the money. Very good free safety out there on that right side. So I really like him, man. He's got a base calculated value of $28 million, $14 million a year, so definitely a little bit on the pricier side. But when you pair him up with Derwin James, that defensive backcourt would be elite. It relieves Adderley of duty, and he stops big plays from developing up top, and that's really what the Chargers need this offseason. Lastly, another big splash signing would be Justin Simmons. Obviously, we're able to take Chris Harris Jr. from the Broncos. Why not Justin Simmons next year, too? 27 years old. He would definitely be one of the pricier players on this list. Would definitely take a huge chunk of our cap space, but at the same time, 4 years, $56 million. You're talking about a guy that can come in here and really be a staple of this defense with Derwin James for the further 4 years. That's a really good deal, because at the same time, when we re-sign Derwin James, those contracts are going to line up and around the same period, so they should be on the field at the same time for a while. So they would be a staple for the defense with Derwin for years. He's also pretty good against the run. So I love everything about Justin Simmons. I think he's a great player. He would definitely be a splash signing. And lastly, I don't have a photo up for this guy, but Earl Thomas, he's still floating around out there somewhere in the free agency land. I still think we should give him a look, man. I feel like he fits our scheme pretty well. He's still a great player, I think, with more in the tank. Yeah, he needs probably like a psych evaluation before getting signed anywhere, but he would likely be very cheap. So if you want a chance to maybe even try to develop Nasir Adderley further, you want to give him somebody to learn under, and I think Earl Thomas and him are very similar in that way. So I would definitely give a shot to Earl Thomas. Maybe see if he can come in here, make a difference for like a year or two, and help Nasir Adderley develop. If not, you know, we can walk away from Adderley at a different time, but I think Earl Thomas would be a benefit to this team next year. And that's all I've really got for the free agents, guys. It's kind of a longer video. I just kind of wanted to jive with you guys, show you guys what I got, my thoughts on all these players, and I hope you guys have some thoughts in the comment section as well. Okay, this is a very early preview at the 2021 free agent pool. I want to know the kind of guys that you are looking for, because I didn't even list a lot of the big names. We could be looking at a splash signing because of the Chargers cap space situation. We've got a rookie quarterback, very low cap hit. We've got more money than most other people in the league, and that's really where I think some strategy needs to come into play for the Chargers this offseason. I think players are going to start getting signed for way less cap than we've ever seen before because of the current situation that the cap space is in. So maybe the Chargers, with this commanding, you know, I would say at least top 10 cap space in the league, could bring in some guys for very cheap, and as the cap space starts to recover, it's going to be even more of a bargain in the long run. So I don't know, I just feel like the Chargers should be aggressive this year because of those circumstances. Well, let me know in the comment section below, guys, which one of these free agents that I listed that you would want to see most. If there's any other free agents that I neglected to mention in this video, please mention that as well, because I'm going to be doing a lot of research going forward. You know, the 2021 season, that's kind of where all Chargers fans have their eye on right now, and I want to start giving us some optimism going into next season, because the Chargers are in position to really make the biggest jump out of any team between the 2020 and the 2021 year. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you liked what you saw, hit us up with the like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty.